The need for foster parents locally in North Carolina and all over the country has been unmet for years. Thompson Child and Family focuses transforming lives through early childhood, family stability, and mental health services. No matter the situation of a child, you can come to Thompson for the training you need to serve them. Discover how you can be a foster parent and make a difference in a child's life. Go to thompsoncff.org or call 704-536-0375.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Debbie Brown, host of the Deeply Well podcast, where we hold conscious conversations with leaders and radical healers in wellness around topics that are meant to expand and support you on your well-being journey. Deeply Well is your soft place to land, to work on yourself without judgment, to heal, to learn, to grow, to become who you deserve to be. Deeply Well with Debbie Brown is available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Namaste.
Hi, welcome back to You Need to Hear This. This week, I have a guest, Gammy Norris. Yes, you heard it, Gammy Norris from Red Table Talk and Positively Gam. As you may or may not know, I've been on Red Table Talk twice, and each time that I have the opportunity to speak with Gammy, it is such a vibrant conversation. So today, you'll get to hear us talk about aging, loneliness, and many life lessons. Yes, so today we will be having a fun conversation about aging. I don't know if you're over this topic. I feel like it has become such a popular topic. I have been seeing so many articles, so many things on TV, documentaries. It's certainly necessary, but it is a conversation that we are really into at this time. Are you feeling any of that this is the thing?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to talk about it. Yay. Okay. So this is new and fresh for you. So in mental health, the new thing that is coming up is lots of information about loneliness and how loneliness is the new epidemic. So many people are saying, not just because of the pandemic, but certainly as we are growing in age, we are losing the company of others. And it is creating a huge sense of loneliness. Today, I am so excited to talk to you about life, but also aging and what it has been for you, what it means to you. I happen to believe that we are aging from the moment we're born, right? Like you're 1 day, then you're 1 year, you know, on that second day of life, you are older than the baby that was just born. So there is always this process of aging and becoming. And one thing to be really clear about is the length of time you've been on earth is not necessarily equal to your maturity. It's not equal to what you have or don't have in life. So let's get started, Gammy. My first question for you is, when did you notice aging?
Probably just recently. Quite frankly, I don't think I've ever really paid that much attention to it, to be perfectly honest. And that was because of the state that I was in, though. I would say that that's unusual for the average person, but because I lived so many years in just a state of confusion and engulfed in my addiction. So all of my focus was on that. And I never even really considered or thought about getting older. Actually, I had this conversation with my girlfriend the other day, who we were in active addiction together. And it was like, we never thought that we would get here. We never thought that we would get to this age. So we didn't even really consider it or think about it. And now that I'm here, I'll be 70 in October. And, it may sound like corny, but these are like some of the best years of my life have been lived after I got clean and sober.
How many years have you been clean?
33.
33
I am in my
years.
third year of recovery.
Wow.
Yes, and it's been such an amazing journey. An
Wow.
amazing journey. And I'm just so grateful that, number one, that I found a higher power, and number two, that I still have my family in my life, because that is not, a guarantee when you've lived the kind of life that I've lived. So.
And I heard you say that you have a friend who was also in the midst of an addiction, and your friend is now sober as well.
Yeah, she got clean before I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you never really thought about aging because you were in a different mindset.
Right.
I read somewhere yesterday that we stop feeling young at around 42 years old, and we start to feel older at around 52 years old.
That just wasn't really my story.
Yeah.
It just wasn't my story. I mean, once I got clean, I just spent so much time and energy trying to get my life back because I had missed so much, right? I had missed so much. So I spent all this time just on the go trying to do things, all the things that I felt like I had missed before, So I started working out. I stopped smoking. I had always wanted to work out and be, at one point, I actually thought I wanted to get into bodybuilding. I never did, but when I started getting clean, that's when my journey for my focus came on my physical recovery as well as my mental and spiritual recovery. And so it was important for me to get hobbies and do all of these things. And that has been my ongoing journey. And I think that too has kept me from falling into a state of loneliness. Because I have so many activities that I enjoy with friends. I love to travel. I am obsessed with Chicago stepping, which is a dance.
I know
and
it.
That keeps you in a social state of mind. So you're out there with other people my age. So I think that's really important as you age, is to keep trying to find things that you enjoy and to live your life. That's what it's been like for me.
I've noticed that even when you don't feel like a person of a certain age, and this could be at 30. I remember being maybe elementary, middle school, and thinking my teachers were 100, right? They probably were 40 or 35. Right. I don't know, but I'm like, oh my gosh, ugh. But I think the world starts to treat you a certain way and say certain things to you, or you start to notice that you're out of the loop of certain things. Songs that come on the radio, you're like, I have no clue what this is. It's too loud. Yes. It's like, what are they wearing? What are they doing?
Right.
And you start to embrace, I'm not there anymore.
Right.
I just want to listen to Frankie Beverly and go to bed by 9:30 or whatever those things are.
Now that is true. That is true. My husband and I were talking the other day, and he was just saying, I know that I'm getting old because there's so many little things that irritate him now that never used to bother him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's really, really impatient when he's driving. and you just be surprised the little things that just kind of get on your nerves, and you're just impatient and don't have tolerance for a lot of foolishness anymore. Whereas, years ago it just rolled off your shoulders. You didn't pay any attention to it. Now he's like, I'm definitely getting old, and definitely the music and things that sometimes I actually, years ago I felt like I kept up a little bit more, but definitely music and some of the things that you see on social media, like I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and if you don't use like social media at any age, like you're out
Right.
of the loop of something, or if hey, I don't listen to the radio, I only listen to the people I like, you're out of the loop. So
Right. And technology, period. That was actually one of the reasons why I retired from nursing, because I wasn't full time, because I was with Jada and the kids all the time. It was very difficult for me to like just keep up with all the changes that were happening with the technology on the floor, on the unit. Like there was always something new that they were adding to the computer, and it was just so challenging for me to understand and keep up with the changes in technology and still be able to care for the patient. And I found that my bedside care seemed to be less important than what I was typing on the computer, and that was a problem for me. I was like, this is not what nursing is supposed to be about. It's time for me to execute.
I had a doctor experience where I just thought this lady was diagnosing me off of WebMD. She came in the room with the computer and she's like, do you have this? Do you have that?
Right.
Not this, not that. I'm like, what are you using? I'm like,
Right.
is this like WebMD? And
Yeah.
it was
Very impersonal, right?
very impersonal, very awkward. I think there are certainly some benefits to some things, and there is some loving of those old, ways that we used to
Right.
have that still really work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's time for a short break, and we will be right back with our conversation. So 70 now is not what 70 was 50 years ago. So when
True.
you were younger, what did you think about someone being 70 or 80? And what do you see now?
I thought I have to agree with you that I thought it was like so old. Like, oh my goodness. But I think what I see now, and because of the environment that I'm in, because I the activities that I engage in with people my age, it is physical. And so I just think that physically a lot of times we are taking care of ourselves better than we were back in, years ago. We have more information and we're more aware,
Yeah, I can certainly see
of
that.
the importance of staying healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's more important, and we have more information so that we can do it better.
What I'm hearing from you and what I very often see is the way that we age well is by living.
Yeah, absolutely.
And many people, it doesn't have to be retirement, but there is some point in our lives where we step away from the living of life at any age, and we don't have any hobbies, and we don't have any friends, and we're
Right.
not keeping relationships, and that just it takes a toll on us mentally, physically, emotionally. We need those outlets. We need people.
Right, absolutely. And I think sometimes, sometimes retirement, I find that some people can actually fall into a depression. And I'm sure a lot of that has happened during COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I meant retirement, and I think just isolation. With
Yeah.
COVID, you have more people working from home, which I don't think is necessarily good for our mental health. That engagement
Mhm.
that we get so irritated by, like, here she come again with her questions. We need our coworkers to annoy us during the workday. We need those little baby shower funds that, we have to contribute to. We need that after work interaction because it's that human connection that keeps us going. And when you don't have any of that and it's just you and a computer, it's very lonely. I mean, it reminds me of the Will Smith movie. What is it? I Am Legend. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That was the saddest movie I ever saw. That and Castaway, where they're in the movie just by themselves.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Actually, and that goes for all of us too, because I actually had a conversation with one of my grandsons the other day, and we have a perfectly functioning gym right here on the property. And he actually joined a gym because he felt like he spent too much time by himself, and he felt like he needed that connection with other human beings. And so one of the ways for him to get that was to join a gym and actually physically go to the gym and interact with other people, different people, just to get him back out in the world because he felt like he was spending too much time by himself.
I think about all the fun stories that come from just interacting with people, going to the grocery store, talking to your mail person or whoever. It's like, that gives us some depth, some character, some fun. Like, it's something about engaging that I can't quite quantify, but it's very important. And even for introverts, you'll have some people sometimes like, I don't like people. I like to be by myself. Well, there is a little bit of us that still needs to be with other people. Maybe not to the extreme of an extrovert, but certainly to some capacity, we need that level of engagement.
Yeah, I would agree 100%.
Yeah. So you are super active. You're Chicago stepping. I'm from Detroit, so Chicago, Detroit, we're like cousins. Detroit has all sorts of line dances and ballrooms.
Yeah.
And
What up, though? What up?
What up, though? So we have all of that stuff. And you know what? I think that's a really fun thing to do, to pull up, some YouTubes and look at the Tamiya step, look at the, what's the blurred line step, the essence. I mean, there are so many different dances. And I really enjoy like going out and you get on a dance floor and everybody starts to like do this synchronized dance. It is so communal and beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely the worst at line dancing, though. But line dancing is a great thing because there's always more women in the room than men. And so line dancing allows you to get up there and dance and do your thing and not have to worry about a partner.
Oh, did women
line
invent
dancing
that?
is a great thing.
Maybe we invented that. Because it is a great thing to do without a partner and certainly with your friends. It is a community activity for sure.
Yeah.
How did you go about like finding hobbies and figuring out the things that you wanted to do?
Like the working out thing, it just was, I saw a body that I wanted to emulate, and that was Janet Jackson. Years ago, I had her picture on my refrigerator, and I started going to the gym, and that's not something that I waited for. Because this was the thing, when I was younger, I was so insecure, and I still hold on to a lot of those insecurities, unfortunately. But it prevented me from doing a lot of things, right? Because I couldn't do anything without like my sister. My sister was my number one go-to, right? Whatever she was doing, I was trying to do that. But then once I got into recovery, that was really my opportunity to like, because that is a journey that you don't take alone, but some of it is like fully your responsibility, right? And so when I started getting clean, I just took that opportunity to start looking into some of the interests that I knew I always had. And working out was one of them. And then, you just take baby steps and one thing leads into another.
Yeah.
you know? And some of my activities were as a result of my partnerships, like my relationships. I started playing tennis because I had a husband who enjoyed tennis. He was a tennis buff, so I learned how to play tennis. I learned about football because one of my husbands was into football. You know what I mean? So, just your relationships a lot of times will lead you into different experiences. And from that, you will develop relationships with other people, and, activities come up.
Speaking of relationships,
Yeah.
how have your girlfriendships changed over the years?
How they've changed mostly is that I am not as much of a just jump on any bandwagon you're jumping on because I wanna be your friend. I'm starting to have a mind of my own a little bit about things that I want to engage in and things that I don't want to engage in. Whereas when I was younger, I mean, that's how I got, involved in drugs in the first place, is following somebody else, because I just wanted to be part of the crowd, a part of the in crowd. And so as years go on and, you get clean and you get some common sense and you get some confidence, some self-confidence, you start being able to make some better choices for yourself. So that's kind of what has happened with me. I'm starting to recognize and stand up for myself in relationships that I recognize that are good for me and relationships that don't really work for me. And it's still a challenge. Don't get it twisted. It's still a challenge for me how to do that in a way that is healthy and kind for both parties, and it has not always worked.
So you're not as impressionable as you once were.
Yes. Yes.
How have your conflict resolution skills developed?
I just said all of them didn't work out. Man,
I heard that, but I didn't want to say, well, how feisty were you at 25?
Yeah, that hasn't changed that much. I am still a work in progress in that area, and I find that to be very challenging. I really do. I find that to be very challenging because once people get or develop an impression about you or how they see you, it's very difficult, I think, for people to change their opinion of you. So I was always looked upon as somebody who was tough and harsh and short-tempered. I think, like, I didn't take a lot of shit and I'm going to cuss you out in a minute. We're not going to fight, but I will give you a good cussing out. So to change that behavior and not be that person is difficult. And I recognize that I didn't like that about myself. It wasn't even what other people thought. I didn't like that people felt that way about me. And so it has been very challenging for me to still be my authentic self, but just not be so harsh. And even when I'm in communication with my husband a lot of times, he just has a lot of problems with my delivery a lot of times. And it's just challenging for me because I don't think I'm being harsh. I think that I'm being direct. I think I'm being direct and honest, and it comes off as being harsh and unkind. So that is one of my biggest challenges to this day.
Is it less frequent?
Yes, it
Okay.
is less frequent.
That's the growth.
Yeah, it's less frequent, but it still happens way too often than I wanted to. And I almost wish that I could record the conversations because I don't hear what they hear. And I think that that people just have that opinion of me, and so they expect that the delivery is going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's that way or not, that's how they're going to perceive it because that's what they expect.
Mm.
But then when it happens so much, it's got to be like, okay, this person told you, that person told you, and this person told you too.
Mm-hmm.
They can't all be wrong.
Now, do you cuss people out and later apologize, or you just cuss them out and they just got to sit with it?
Well, let me go back a little bit because I don't do that much anymore.
Okay, there's the growth.
Yeah.
Okay, no more cussing people out.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done that in quite some time. I can't remember the last time I did that actually.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I would have to really think about that to think about when was the last time I really cussed somebody out.
Well, I won't ask you all the fun stories about that, but
no, please don't. Please don't. Please don't. Please don't. Oh, I actually do remember the last time I did it, but they deserved it.
Okay.
And we both apologized.
Mm.
She apologized to me for what happened that got her to cussing out. And then I apologized to her as well. And we have healed that relationship, and it's still healing.
Mm.
But we are making a conscious effort to do it. We are making a conscious effort to come back in relationship differently. And I think that's important. Like, once you have a falling out and then you decide to heal, you don't come back the same way.
Hopefully. Now,
exactly.
Some people, they come back as themselves, as they've been. But hopefully you don't come back the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've been sober for 30 plus years, which is a huge accomplishment. So that happened around 40?
Yeah, around 37.
Yeah.
So.
What was your awakening?
Just being sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm.
Really, truly. Like I had been in and out of the rooms for 6 years. My sister had gotten clean several years before me. The friend that I was using with on a regular basis, she had gotten clean. I was pretty much out there alone by myself. And I once again found myself in my basement by myself, using and realizing that I had gotten burnt, which means that I copped some drugs that weren't any good. And it was like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, aren't you done? Like, aren't you done? And then I had the opportunity to, someone came back in my life and I had an opportunity to, I saw hope in a relationship because it was a person that I had been in a relationship years ago, many, many years ago. And that person came back into my life out of concern because they heard that I was struggling and that I had been in treatment. And so that alone was a motivating factor for me. The fact that I felt the need to do something and be there differently for Jada. And, I just made a decision. Because at the end of the day, it can be as simple as that. Once you've been exposed to the steps that you need to take, then you need to make a decision about whether you're going to take them or not. And so for me, it didn't matter how I got there. The fact that, initially I got there for somebody else. Eventually, if you stay there long enough, the reason becomes you. And then you're doing it for yourself. And that was, that's how it went down for me. And I ended up marrying that person.
Was there a conversation with Jada about your intentions to be in her life, or did that just unfold naturally because of your sobriety?
Well, she never left.
Okay.
We were always, yeah.
Okay.
She never gave up on me.
But you stepped
She
up.
was just away. She was away at college.
Mm.
You know, she was away at college, and then she was going out to Hollywood, and I did not want her to have to deal with that with me. I didn't want her to have to worry about me anymore. And I just wanted to be there differently for her. Like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And I just got tired of the unmanageability of my life. You know, that it was like a vicious cycle. I would go in and I would get, there were several times when I had almost accumulated a year clean. But I did that for 6 years. For 6 years, I would get clean for certain lengths of time, and then I would, just use for whatever reason. Because, we have all kinds of reasons for using. Oh, the sun came up this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get high. Oh, I'm unhappy today.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
How have you gotten better at sitting with discomfort?
Wow, that's an interesting question, but I always remember this. We say this in our 12-step program all the time, and that is, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And I use the people. I definitely have a village. Village. And I talk to my village, and one of the strongest people in my village is Jada. And Jada has a wealth of information that helps me. My husband, he is such a calming and reasonable, grounding person in my life. And then my sponsor, I can always depend on her to help me get through difficult times and just see things, in a different light, and recognize that there is a higher power that has a plan for me, and I am not that power. And sometimes I need to just let go and let God. And then even when we were out to dinner last night for Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, by the way.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah. And we were in conversation at the table, and we were just talking about how things were going in the world. And my initial response to that was, it's a mess out here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then Trey's mother, Cherie, said, but it's perspective. It's your perspective on it. And then Willow, in her wisdom, just started talking about how understanding that we don't understand is the power of surrender, and it's the power of recognizing God. And so conversations like that always I can reflect back on and recognize that I'm not in control. There's so little that I'm in control of, and your powerlessness actually is a form of surrender and recognizing the power of God.
You said earlier that you and Jada maintained your relationship, but you knew that she was worried and she would check in on you. And I've heard you, say that you recognize that there were some challenges in your parenting when she was younger. Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least. And I'm just so grateful that I had an opportunity to heal with her. And I was able to do that. I think the healing, and she'll agree with me on that. The healing for us really, really started once she had children. And I was able to mother her through that process. And then I was able to be a grandmother to Jaden and Willow and Trey. And, having those relationships, was hugely important in bridging and creating a bridge for the two of us to heal. And it has just continued to grow. I can't tell you how much just even Red Table Talk has done for us. Just having conversation and, Jada calls me every day now. And I remember always comparing the relationship that my sister had with her daughter. Like, they are best friends. I don't have that relationship with Jada. I never will. And I understand that. I take responsibility for that. But I do recognize the healing that has occurred, and I'm so grateful. I used to always, like, my sister and her daughter talk several times a day. And now I'm having that same healing with Jada. We talk several times a day sometimes, and it just feels really, really good. I'm not her best friend. I'm not trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my role in her life. I'm her mama. And I am grateful that, I've had that opportunity to heal with her. And it's an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of restoration in that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of recovery, I'm sure, honesty. I find that it can be challenging for some of us to take ownership of our stuff.
Yes.
And it, whether there was some addiction or, whatever the issue was with parenting, you have a lot of parents who'll say, I did the best I could. Move on.
Exactly.
Move on without any acknowledgement, without any, hope for recovery. It's just like, it happened. Let's move forward. But
okay.
And I find that, that accountability piece is really important for people.
It is important. And sometimes, in hearing Jada speak on it, a lot of times things are not always the way I remembered it, but I have to acknowledge her experience. It's how she experienced it, whether it was that way for me or not, whether it was my intention or not. That's how she experienced it. And I just have to kind of sit with it. I have to sit with it and accept it and say, and I think it's important too, and I know it has been for Jada, to actually hear me say, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. She needed to hear that. She still needs to hear it. It may not be for everybody, but it was important for her. To not only just say you're sorry, but then not to repeat the same behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Let's pause, and we'll be back really shortly after this break.
Protesters and supporters alike are lined up outside the United States Supreme Court this afternoon as a decision in the most hotly debated case in years is set to be delivered.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade.
Sir, I graduated the top quarter of my class.
We just don't have a spot for you.
Starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
My chief qualification being, I'm uncontroversial.
You know how we both ended up on the Supreme Court?
Politics?
Damn right.
This may be the longest of shots, but it's also the last chance for a lot of women.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
I'm trying to get you to stand for something, man. Now go to it.
Listen to Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Sam Farber, the radio play-by-play broadcaster for the Charlotte Hornets, and it is my pleasure and privilege to invite you to check out the Hornets Hivecast, the official podcast of the Charlotte Hornets. Available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We take you inside the locker room for exclusive conversations with players like All-Star guard LaMelo Ball.
Pretty much I'm worried about just winning for real. Just going in, trying to get as much wins, taking it game by game.
General Manager Mitch Kupchak.
I think he's going to be really, really, really good here.
And Hornets head coach Steve Clifford.
And if we can get to that level and have a mentality of getting better and better and better, then we can be a factor.
With new podcast episodes every day, we've got you covered on the Hornets Hivecast. Whether you want to hear from the top performers of a recent Hornets win or get caught up in time for tip-off tonight. Check us out. A new episode just posted today on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you hungry for the inside scoop on women's soccer? I'm Sam Mewis. And I'm Lynn Williams. And we're professional soccer players, best friends, and the host of Snacks, the only women's soccer podcast hosted by active players that gets into the most recent news, gossip, and fun of the NWSL, the women's national team, and the delightful, delicious, wacky world of snacks. It's a weekly show about women's soccer, our friendship, the foods that we like, the places we get our hair cut, the random things that we come up with in our daily lives. And we get to talk to a bunch of our friends all the time, which is like one of my favorite parts about it. That's also my favorite part too. Each week we have guests like Kelly O'Hara, Megan Rapinoe, Julie Foudy, all giving you an inside look at the NWSL, the road to the World Cup, and women's sports culture. So what are you waiting for? Listen to Snacks on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
And one thing I really love to hear is that you accept the many parts of yourself and you tell your story honestly. I think sometimes when everything is not wonderful, it's kind of like when you have a job interview and you're like, what's your worst quality? You're like, I love people too much. You try to.
Well, you know what, Dr. Nedra, it sounds like you're getting ready to get the end, but I don't want to get off the call without your hopefully giving me a little bit advice on how to deal with the issues that I'm dealing with as far as my delivery. Like, what is it? What would you suggest? Because usually, particularly with my husband, when he brings it to my attention, what I'm trying to do now is just listen and hear it, and not go with and not interrupt him and make excuses for what his experience is. I just have to hear it. And sometimes I'll say, well, I don't see it that way. And I'm sorry that's how you received it. That's certainly not how I meant it. So I apologize. But I find it a little bit more challenging too with my girlfriends. I don't know. Because I find that they actually are more willing to just say, that's just how she is, and I actually don't want that. I actually want them to hold me accountable when they feel like I'm being harsh or negative. So they did come up with a word. They'll say Snickers. Like, you need something to eat because you getting snappy right now.
Well, earlier when you were talking, I heard you identify yourself as a person who cusses people out, to the point where I was confused if this was a present behavior or a past one.
Yeah.
So you say
okay.
that they identify you as this thing, and I think there's also still a part of you that identifies with being this way. I am a feisty person. I will tell it like it is. And you have to undo some of that. I think there is something in there about the need to have that behavior, and maybe it was really useful at a time. Right? Where you did need to cuss somebody out. You did need to be a little feisty. Does he need that information delivered in that way? 30 years ago, somebody may have needed you to talk to them like that. Maybe yesterday, somebody said something and needed that energy. But we have to be clear about who we're talking to and what our intention is with this person. How do they best receive information from me?
Gotcha. So I need a signal for myself.
You do.
Yeah,
Because there is, we carry ourselves with us, so that can be deeply in us, right? To have this I want to say this, but this is what I said instead. So even taking a breath and pausing and thinking about how to say this, and not responding right away could be really helpful. Just giving it a thoughtful pause so that you come up with the right information and run it through your head. Like, does this sound direct to me, or would this sound direct to this person based on how I know they like to receive information? Because sometimes what we might say as this is direct, it could be me. Because we're thinking of what feels appropriate to us. Well, us is not in a relationship with me. This person is.
Right.
So I could talk to myself this way, but this person doesn't like to receive information that way. And so that is what I'm considering, because I want to be in a relationship with this person.
Right.
And for this person, this is how I need to speak. I know you can change it because you have grandchildren. You speak to them in a certain way.
Yes.
You have a daughter. You speak to her in a certain way.
Yes.
When you go to the store, you speak to those folks in a certain way. So we're constantly shifting the way that we speak to people when they get on our nerves, when we love them, when we're upset, when we're confused, when we're irritated. We're constantly shifting this. We have the ability to do that. You just need to do it in the conversations with him. You're already doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or with whoever I'm in the conversation with.
Yeah. You already do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was That's a helpful reminder. Thank you.
Well, thank you for today. This was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You need to hear this. The aging process starts when you stop living. From my conversation with Gammy, I heard a person who is living her life and feeling good about it. For many of us, aging is a big thing, whether that's 30, 40, 50, or 60, you start to maybe slow down in life, but that is not a reason to slow down. We will all age, but how we age matters. If you want to cure loneliness, we have to keep our relationships going, and we certainly need to live a full life. You Need to Hear This is an iHeart production hosted by me, Nedra Glover Tawwab. Our executive producer is Joelle Monique. Our senior producer and editor is Mia Dawn Taylor. Send us a voice memo with your questions about boundaries and relationships at youneedtohearthis@iheartmedia.com. Please be sure to rate our show wherever you listen to it and share this episode with someone who needs to hear this. Talk to you next time.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Debbie Brown, host of the Deeply Well podcast, where we hold conscious conversations with leaders and radical healers in wellness around topics that are meant to expand and support you on your well-being journey. Deeply Well is your soft place to land, to work on yourself without judgment, to heal, to learn, to grow, to become who you deserve to be. Deeply Well with Debbie Brown is available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Namaste. 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 Namaste.